What do you know about your workplace that you're not supposed to know? I work in education. My former chairman allowed a female employee to embezzle money from the school. I found out and blew the whistle. I assumed the woman would be fired and the chair would be demoted. Instead, the woman was asked to quit and given a package, and the chair stayed in his position because of his status as a coach. He proceeded to make my job very difficult for the next 5 years until he gave up the chairmanship to someone competent. The woman was his work wife and mistress, who also used to be a student at our school. Yeesh. This whole work wife / work husband thing to me is very strange. Story 2. My former boss, who was married, had intimacy in his office with multiple employees, crappy leadership skills. He came from a naval background and didn't have a clue what he was talking about unless it was Navy stuff. Office supervisor had F-buddies in the office. He would let them get away with anything in exchange for intimate favors. He would always talk about how much he got paid compared to everyone else, never wanted to help anyone or give a crap. The entire department is a complete crap show. The good bunch of people who made the place decent either left or constantly got screwed over. Hard workers never got a thank you. Story 3. That in March next year, the company I work for will lose the contract to provide catering and all employees will probably lose their job. I can't sleep at night. I can't look them in the eyes. The company that contracts us has already started negotiating with another contractor, and I am friends with someone high up in that company. They told me to get out ASAP. My boss doesn't even know. I've been dropping hints, but I don't know what to do. If I can, I will find new jobs for my team. There are 2 separate teams, and I manage one before then, and encourage them to put in an application, but I can't make them. Story 4. That with a day or 2 of effort, I could draft a full proposal for eliminating my job and the other 4 people who do my job. It's completely unnecessary, and the organization wastes, conservatively, $200,000 a year on salary and benefits for us to perform a very small number of tasks that could be easily delegated elsewhere or replaced with an outside service. I suspect it's one of those being taken care of situations. The other 4 employees are all women and have all been there for 15, 20 years. Nobody wants to put these old fossils into the office and say, "You're a grown adult who gets paid a grown adult salary to sit around on Facebook and answer the phone 3 times in an 8-hour shift. Get the heck out of here." Private sector, the position would have been eliminated a decade ago. I mean, it's nice that I'm employed, but the job is a complete waste of time and money. You know that book, BS Jobs? This is it. Story 5. I'm a nanny. Short answer, everything. I hear all the whispers you think I can't hear from the next room. Your kids know and talk more than you think. Google fills in your search history when I'm ordering more diapers. I pulled the receipts out of the dryer that fell out of your pants pockets. The iPad the kids use has the photo account linked across all of your devices. I don't snoop intentionally, but just as a byproduct of being in the home all day and working with the family so intimately, I definitely know most or all of the family secrets. Even the secrets that mom boss and dad boss may be keeping from each other. I just pretend not to know anything at all until I'm directly told. I would never tell these things to anyone, but make sure you really trust your nannies and or have a non-disclosure clause in their contract. Story 6. At my last command, the legal officer of all people would put his calls on speakerphone and leave his door open. So of course, everyone in the vicinity could hear him talking about people's sensitive information as well as his personal opinions about these people. One of the worst I overheard was, "Is there anything we can do to keep so-and-so from advancing, getting a promotion?" Another was, so-and-so's wife called the captain saying he harmed her, so now I have to deal with that. He was a piece of crap, probably still is. Story 7. Not my current job, but when I worked in logistics, my boss, head of outbound operations, didn't have a high school diploma and the job required a college degree. She lied on her resume to get the job. She was an amazing boss, though. She didn't micromanage. She called me on my crap and screw-ups when they occurred, but was never mean or power-trippy about it. She offered suggestions to increase efficiency, but they weren't required. We just had to test them out, keep what worked, discard what didn't. Somehow, she was always able to make me feel proud of a job well done while still making me determined to do better. Probably the best boss I've worked for to date, and that includes 6 years of self-employment. She was fired a few months after I left for lying on her resume. Story 8. I work in a large federal government building, one of the ones you would see on the news frequently because a lot of stuff happens here and reporters are on location often. There are a series of network closets in the building. They're placed in the same locations on multiple floors, so the cabling layout is standardized. They range in size from a decent-sized bathroom to a studio apartment, and you'd never notice them in the hallway because the doors are unassuming. One of these closets is completely unlabeled. The plaque with the room number has been removed, and it's just a blank door in the hallway. I noticed it was where one of our closets should be, but it's missing from all the maps and the directory. It's the largest closet by far, Someone has furnished it with leather couches and a TV and a fridge. I have no idea who converted it into their own private lounge, but there are 10,000 people in this building and only 30 or so people can open that door. Story 9. At my last job, I was a confidant of my ASM, SM, GM, and most of the crewmen I supervised. I'm not stupid enough to think I knew everything, and I'm well aware that I was brazenly lied to a lot, but I knew so many things. I turned it into a game most times where I would pretend not to know a thing so that different people at different levels would swear to me secrecy and then tell me the thing from their angle. Invariably, the same one thing was completely different from each person. I never broke confidence, which is precisely why people told me stuff. One of the proudest moments of my life, not exaggerating, was when the ASM and I were welcoming a new hire, and the ASM cautioned her to never tell anyone here something you don't want the whole shop to know, except for listener and me. You can talk to him, he doesn't talk about other people's stuff. I was the guy people trusted, and that's exactly who I wanted to be. I got to really know and enjoy some of our people, and I also got to see all kinds of things about the company that should never have been revealed to me. The most interesting thing was when a person didn't know that I was in the know about a thing and attempted to confide a lie in me. This happened all the time, and I really got to see people's true colors. You can tell a lot about a person and their motives and what they think of you by what they choose to lie about, especially if you never make them aware that you know they're lying. If they think they fooled you or that they own you, they'll keep on showing you everything. Knowing things I'm not supposed to know is what I do. I don't get off on sharing it like others do. Instead, I get off on being the only one that people trust. Story 10. I seem to have been designated the work confidant, so I know pretty much everything going on around here. One guy is back sleeping with his ex-girlfriend after he originally left her for chasing him through the house with a screwdriver. Once he left, he went back to his ex before that, who used to beat him with a house brick. Then he lived with both of them, 5 kids among them, but now it seems he's back exclusively with Screwdriver Lady. There's one clerk here sleeping with one of the directors early on when nobody is here. Both married, both very confident in their ability to cover their tracks, as if. Our place is full of functioning alcoholics, and I know exactly when, where, and how much they drink before they begin their shift at 6 a.m. Some of the quantities could floor a rhino. Plenty more. My workplace is fun. Story 11. That the entire healthcare system has been hijacked by quality metrics that have everything to do with rationing care delivery and care resources and almost nothing to do with actual quality of care. These are the carrot and stick for all corporate entities and all other management employees that are not providers. The providers are still incentivized by volume of practice, and the entire reason we have a shortage of physicians and ancillary staff isn't because we don't have enough of them, but that they are systematically undersupported from working any more than half of what they are reasonably capable of doing. Your local hospital, care system, or a clinically integrated network will get paid more for the less care they deliver, and not the other way around. It's the opposite of capitalism. They still need to maintain their volume of business, but for established care system, they are in every way incentivized to focus on cost savings rather than capital expenditure on efficiency and growth. Sure, it also reduces the need for expenditure marketing and competition-related efforts, but the shortage of providers is an illusion created by intentional efforts to suppress and restrict care delivery. Story 12. I work for a major car rental company that is now more than $15 billion in debt. Nobody will loan them money to replace its aging fleet, and there is no hope of making that money ever back again. The state of Florida is currently suing them over toll charge practice. I have found this information by reading stock market analysis. I know for a fact they are not cluing any of the local managers about it. The C-level churn rate for this company is amazing. I believe if we got O.J. Simpson to do some commercials for us again, it would boost our revenue. Story 13. Old job, 20 plus years ago. I was doing IT and literally inside the walls there was an access space between 2 units and found that I could get inside the CEO's office, like if he were to punch the wall in the right spot, I'd go, ugh. I could hear everything. I heard lots of juicy bits about the divorce proceedings, plans for department restructuring, etc. One time I heard about the plans to torpedo me, essentially get rid of most of my department, keeping me on just long enough to manage an outsourcing cutover, then let me go. I let it play out the rest of the week. Things pretty much went according to the plan I overheard, and not so much of a mention to me that I'd be laid off afterward. I had 2 weeks of vacation accrued at that time, so on Friday afternoon I let my immediate supervisor know I was going on vacation. It wasn't so much a request as just an announcement. I enjoyed the hell out of that 2 weeks. When I got back, management was furious. After all the yelling about how unprofessional it was, etc., I said, okay, just let that serve as my 2 weeks notice, and I walked. Story 14. 29 years at different computer companies. I've seen it all. Throwaway account. I was given an old PC that had not been cleaned. It contained a salary spreadsheet, reprimand letters, and legal documents responding to former employees who who were suing the company. Two married engineers were having an affair. Her husband tried to end them both and ended it all. Bosses moved major expenses from Q2 to Q1 so they did not have to pay profitability bonuses to employees. An engineer downloaded, decompiled, and added part of a commercial product to our product source code. We deleted it, and he was fired. One of the support managers hides on the roof to avoid his employees and boss. HR knows who is looking for a new job. I think they scan the job boards for resumes and watch people's LinkedIn accounts. I have received warnings from them before. At a very large company, one of the buildings had a hookup hallway in the basement. Employees on the night shift, hardware manufacturing, would fool around down there. A VP's wife left us short several $1 million due to an accounting quote-unquote mistake. She was not fired. A sales executive stole $1 million USD, was fired but not charged. They got some of the money back, but he had gambled a lot of it away. One employee was living in an abandoned server room across the hall from our offices. Everyone thought he was working late. He went to the gym and showered there. Story 15. At Amazon, we have this program called Flex for independent contractors doing last-mile deliveries. Part of that is the Prime Now 2-hour delivery. The base pay was initially set at $18 an hour because that's roughly what it was determined it would cost to operate a truck and pay minimum wage. After it launched, it was apparently discovered that customers tip quite well on average, so now drivers are getting massively stiffed on tips, often resulting in us not paying anything at all for the driver and using customer tips to cover their entire base wage. So when it says on your order that 100% of tip goes to driver, that's technically true, but we just calculate the portion we pay based on that and pay them less base wage as a result. Story 16. I worked for a private university that was notorious for being stingy with pay. Management refused raises and froze cost of living increases for several years in a row in a very expensive city because they said no one was able to get paid anymore. Since it was a registered not-for-profit, the tax returns are public record. So I filled out a very simple form to the IRS, waited a couple of weeks, and then I had every executive salary, including raises, for the past couple of years. I emailed this out to all the administrative assistants, the guaranteed way to get information out in the school before I quit. Story 17. I was an assistant manager at a store. The alarm systems at my store were not up to par and kept getting false readings. Several of the entry points didn't function properly, which led to me getting calls all hours of the night almost every night for a couple of years. It turns out someone had to approve the cost, which was well in the thousands, and the location was not doing well on its bottom line because of some essential repairs. The store manager threatened the management team, told us we'd be fired if we signed off on getting the work done. I stepped down to finish up my last semester of my degree, and I was picked up as a district-level manager quickly. Before I left, I checked to see if I was still in the approval chain, and I was, so I ordered the fixes. About $16,000. Felt amazing. Story 18. My first 2 years working at my job, small company, 25 people, there supposedly wasn't enough money for raises. I later found out that all of the managers got raises, even though they explicitly told us that no one got raises. After the second year of no raises, I did get a small bonus, but they fed me some BS about, "You're the only one who got a bonus, so don't tell anyone." There were at least 5 other people who deserved bonuses over me that year, so I asked around and eventually found out from the lady who managed payroll, who I was good friends with at the time, that everyone actually got the bonuses. It was at this time that she told me about the raises the managers received as well. Story 19. Throwaway because I could get in deep crap for this. I've been with this guy since he started an online company. He had $16,000 in his bank account. I was the first employee, and I started with very little in salary. A salary that he had trouble paying in the beginning, and I understood that things are difficult as a startup, so I never complained if the salary was not there. 10 years later, my salary is about $250,000. I knew he was making bank, but didn't know how much. I thought I was doing fine. Eventually, he stopped coming to work, and I was asked to handle things. Then I found out. The company did $300 million in profit last year. 5 years ago, it had crossed $100 million. The cost for staff salaries per year is less than $1 million. We don't get crazy benefits. He has mansions all over the world. He didn't marry, but he has women on retainers in multiple cities. Travels by private jet. There is a yacht, but I don't think it's been out to sea. Last month, we paid about £20,000 for VIP check-in at Heathrow Airport. He spent the first 4 months of 2018 in France, and the hotel bill was $1.5 million. He has come to the office 2 days this year, but we transferred his dividends of over $212 million for the year. I'm still waiting for my bonus from last year. Some nights I can't sleep, especially when we get his Amex bill and have to clear it from the company. Story 20. I work in education and am newly graduated. The position I was offered never existed, and the unforeseen changes never occurred. The school I applied for has grade levels from pre-K to 12th. A week before I graduate, they tell me that I won't be in the high school, I'll be in the middle school. Not great, since I have looked at literally no other schools due to being assured of my position over a year prior, even going so far as to sign the contracts. But no worries, it's a great opportunity. My degree and experience covers both levels. Upon arrival, I'm thrown in with 5th graders, going from 12th grade AP government and politics to telling kids to get a new pair of pants from the nurse is one thing, but finding out that these guys knew about the position change for months prior to telling me is underhanded at best. They wanted to wait as long as possible before telling me so that I wouldn't have time to look anywhere else, ensuring they had a body in a room. Found out from another teacher that he knew I'd be working in 5th grade months before I was told, which leads me to believe that the administration knew for ages. My last day is today. Story 21. No one will probably see this, but when I learned about this, I was quite shocked. So I recently got a job at a Japanese restaurant, and nearly everyone that works there is Chinese. I didn't think this was too weird, but upon talking to everyone there, they all told me they were from different parts of China. I couldn't help but wonder how they were all brought together to be working at the same place all the way here in the States, so I started digging around. Apparently, the restaurant is possibly owned by the Chinese Mafia as a legal business, and they recruit Chinese people all throughout the country by promising them papers and a place to stay in the USA with the chance of becoming a citizen. These things are, however, false, and in reality, the people who agree are flown out here to essentially become slaves, working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, because they are now indebted to the owners with no family or friends or money to get them out. They are paid by the lie that they are in debt to the owners and given a small apartment to stay in, where I've heard up to 10 of them are living in with only 2 bedrooms. Eventually, the lie will come out that the owners have no actual way of giving them any papers or helping them become citizens. The place has been open less than a year. I have no idea what is going to happen moving forward. Story 22. The boss employs and houses a mentally disabled man because he gets money from the state for doing so. The boss mistreats him, hits him, kicks him, throws things at him, and screams at him, all in front of the normal workers. But it gets especially bad when all of us normal staff have left. While we are there, the boss holds back somewhat, but when we are gone, it's a different story. He's forced to do the really hard and dirty work, stuff we would refuse, and he is forced to do it all day. He barely gets enough time to sleep or eat, and the boss will also refuse to pay him his salary, claiming he did this or that wrong and he has to pay for it. Even when he makes a mistake and it is clear he didn't do it on purpose, he is still punished, and we are threatened to never say anything, otherwise the boss will not only fire us but also ruin our reputation in the field so that no other employer would hire us. One of the saddest moments was when I found him going through the trash for something to eat, when just earlier the boss gave all us others the leftover stuff from the day. And if any of these stories are getting to you, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 23. I worked as a chaplain for a summer. I was on the pediatric unit and worked with this wonderful minister who was a Baptist and handled all the oncology patients. At the end of the summer, there was a celebration for all of the summer interns like me who were leaving. I sat next to him and we started talking about our faiths. I am a Unitarian Universalist and we have Humanists in our congregation. In a hushed tone, he told me that he was a humanist too, that he didn't believe in God but loved the work he was doing, helping kids and their parents. There were a few other quote-unquote Christian ministers who confessed the same to me. They were more concerned about doing moral deeds than the reason why you did them. These weren't mega church ministers, and chaplaincy doesn't pay huge dividends. They just love the work, but not the theology. Story 24. My previous organization. Boy, what a craft show. This was about 5 years ago, but the story still continues as far as I know. The organization itself is and was a fun place to work except for this one department. The VP of the department, it was a bank by the way, who was 45 and had a breath that would make Godzilla gag, took after a 22-year-old intern named Sultan. His nickname is the Mughal Stallion. Behind their backs, don't ask. So the VP starts actively being intimate with this very fit and muscled Adonis while actively ignoring her literal 98-pound weakling husband. He really looks like the 98-pound weakling from the Charles Atlas ads. And this goes on for a while. The whole freaking office got to know about it as they used the car and the car park as their boudoir. I myself caught the lady riding the Mughal Stallion in the car park at like 1 a.m. when they didn't expect company. They didn't see me, so I just made like I didn't see them either and gave them their space. The lady had a lot of discretionary powers within her domain, and the stallion was quickly prompted up the ranks despite having no discernible talent. She then positioned him in international business development and basically took along her toy on her trips abroad. It got very obvious, but her cousin was a country head of another country, but still he had a lot of clout, and HR really couldn't do much. Also, there wasn't a direct complaint yet, until her husband came to work on a Friday evening and basically threw down the gauntlet, raised a crap storm and whatnot. HR then had to place her on leave for a week till they figured out what to do. In the interim, she very quickly filed for divorce and had the stallion quit, so HR pretty much had no case. She is still being intimate with the stallion to this day while she and her husband went to divorce court and then got reconciled. Story 25. Finally, one I can answer. Now, we're not supposed to know that the CEO, who is married and has kids, is in love with the director who is also married and has kids. They have constant closed-door meetings that are anywhere from around 30 minutes to an hour multiple times a day where you can hear whispering and giggling. At company parties, my CEO and the director's husband never interact or talk at all, while my director essentially kisses the CEO's wife's butt constantly. One time, the director was trying to tell us a story the CEO told her. When she went looking for the text from him, she let slip that she always deletes his text from her phone and then went red in the face. He brings her sodas and Starbucks drinks all day, every day. She is freaking incompetent at her job, has lost money for the company, and is the reason people have quit, but he still doesn't let her go. The CEO's best friend used to work as a salesperson. Quote-unquote, something happened that made the sales guy quit and their 20-plus year relationship ended abruptly. My CEO withheld a commission check from him, so the sales guy went on to tell my ex-coworker, if I don't receive my commission check in 2 weeks, I'm going to tell everyone how he went to Vegas recently on a bender, called me crying, and confessed his love for the director. Bonus gossip, we just had a company party where the director went around and told at least 2 male coworkers that we know of the following. I have to have intimacy with husband for 2 minutes tonight. This is only the tip of the iceberg with these 2 idiots, but it is obvious to most people who work here that they have some kind of agreement. At the very least, my director knows how to play the game, and my CEO is too stupid to tell the difference. Story 26. From Germany here, I'm an IT admin for a paint producer with about 600 people. A year ago, we had a nice colleague who became a sick, creepy chief of IT, CIO. But I'll tell it from the beginning. We were 6 colleagues in the infrastructure team and a handful of programmers in our dev team. The former CIO got fired for some reasons I don't know, so the soon-to-be a sick creep, I call him A, was asked if he wants to be the CIO ad interim. Until this time, he was just a normal colleague and most of us liked him. Then he became our CIO. Fancy office, new equipment. He drowned in his new fancy stuff and felt important from one day to the other. But hey, you have to deal with a lot of crap, so I wasn't jealous at all. And at this point, I should say that we got a new firewall which can track everything. It's called a next-gen firewall, and we used it like a man in the middle. It can see everything. aka the CIO, said, I want to know how much we can see with this new firewall. Do a test in our IT department for a few days, and after the test, we will inform the Works Council and change the reports to unpersonalized data. So the reports contained which PC uses the most data, which website was the most popular by visiting, etc. It was YouTube, by the way, but hey, as long as our colleagues listen to music, I don't really care about that. After the test, I edited the reports in a meeting together with our Works Council. As you might guess, the firewall still collected all the other information, websites visited by users, spent time on site, data usage, which user is the top user by data, and so on, but simply doesn't report them. After 3 months, I had a boring late shift, and I looked into this data. Accessing it was no problem since I am responsible for the firewall. And holy crap, Jesus, our new CIO, downloaded corn like crazy. So, what to do with this information? I saw it was downloaded to an external hard drive from our company. It was possible for me to access every hard drive in our company. The CIO did a nice job. He even created an Excel sheet with all the stars, their movies, a lot of you guys and girls maybe know, plus when it was downloaded or still needs to be downloaded. I was puzzled and didn't know how to tell anyone about this. I let him do his crap. I thought as long as he does a good job, I'll just limit his bandwidth to 1 megabyte per second instead of 250. I always told him different excuses when he asked why his network was so slow. After half a year, I told it to my colleagues, and from this point, things just got worse, as if someone pushed a button. He started a search for a disturbing type of corn, but couldn't find it, of course. I already blocked nearly the entire web for him with the firewall and limited his access to only work-related topics, but somehow he still managed to get around these limits. Each website must be categorized, aka news, corn, real estate, etc., so that it can be blocked by the firewall. However, there are almost countless sites that are not categorized. These must then be blocked by hand, but I still have to do work instead of just being the master of corn blocking. So our team decided to talk straight to him and threaten to tell the Human Resources Department if he does not stop his crap. And he didn't believe us. What could you do against me? If you tell HR about that, you will also get fired for accessing the firewall and looking for personal data without permission of the Works Council. And he was right. None of us wanted to lose our job, so we decided to write an anonymous letter to HR with a subtle hint that he is doing some serious crap. And to cut this off, he was fired. We were officially allowed access to his laptop and account by the Works Council and found a lot of disturbing crap. He got arrested and sentenced to prison for 10 years. We later got told by the police that he had a home server and connection to the dark web where he bought and sold it on an online platform and hosted his own corn website. Story 27. Maybe not a specific thing, but rather what the head of the company said to me behind closed doors. Brief preamble, we were unionized. I used to work as a laborer. I got in trouble for exercising my right to refuse dangerous work. The boss hauls me into the office, says that if I don't do the job, he'd give me a 3-day suspension. I tell him that's not only unethical, but against the rules, and he said, I've been working around rules for decades. If I want something done, it's gonna get done. Complain to the union all you want, but they won't do anything. Kicker, I recently found out that the boss is old friends with the president of the union and plays broomball with him every other weekend. Story 28. Everything. I sit about 6 feet away from my boss's office, and our CEO constantly has meetings in there with her. The office door is thin. I hear about all the ins and outs of the organization without even trying. A couple of months back, a colleague of mine resigned after working with us for almost 20 years. I knew about it around a week before anyone else in the office because I could hear him telling our boss through her closed door. I've learned about cutbacks and funding results long before anyone was supposed to know. To my credit, that's a weird thing to say, I keep it all to myself. I don't mean to eavesdrop, and I'm not a gossip, but I know way more than I should. Also, the CEO isn't terribly discreet. Story 29. I own a construction company. What could there be about a workplace that the owner is not supposed to know? Well, recently I fired the warehouse manager and 2 guys below him for stealing product, all with police investigation and certified proof included. I couldn't nail the guy above him, the manager for all warehouses. I was ready to fire him anyway because I couldn't believe he wasn't in the know. Before I got to do it, I noticed he often left his PC on when leaving for the day. I stayed in my office, quote-unquote, working late. I got to his PC, no password, browser's open, web, WhatsApp is logged in. So I called home. I'm going to be late. I scoured his entire WhatsApp, especially conversations he had with the stealing employees. Found no evidence of him knowing or being on the take. I noticed he's fighting with the wife. At this point, I had an ethics talk with myself. The work stuff I considered okay because the company provides that number for work-related use. The personal stuff technically belongs to the company too if he's doing it over that number, but maybe okay, maybe not okay. I'm pondering on what to do when a newly arrived message says something interesting. Obviously, I don't read it. I have to wait for him to do it first. He did so right away on his phone, obviously, so I jumped to that conversation. Turns out he's gay, and his wife and 2 kids don't know. Oh boy, I'm way past the line now. I gotta know more. Over the next couple of weeks, I found out he actually does seem to be clean, that he was having an affair with the same manager I fired for stealing, and he dropped it when I fired him, although it seems the guy may have just been intimate with him because he was his superior. Last week, he told his wife. He also asked for vacation days on Friday and Saturday, which I gave him, along with the, is everything okay? That is mandatory. He didn't open up. Now I'm hooked on the soap opera, and I cannot stop reading. Also, he complains about his pay to friends. I looked up the books, noticed he could be considered a little bit underpaid, so he's in for a raise. Story 30. This happened about 10 years ago when I worked for a retail store. My boss would go out every morning around 6 a.m. to about 7 a.m. No one knew where he was going, which baffled us that worked in the stockroom, about 3 to 4 people, including some of the guys who work on the sales floor. And one day, one of my colleagues went to go and get breakfast and saw our boss get inside a beige Mercedes and pretty much sat there the whole time. Some of us got curious, so we decided to locate the car, and sure enough, he was in it with another man on the driver's seat. Our boss is married to another man who apparently is the store manager next door to us. After this incident, it's as if we opened Pandora's box. We also noticed he would disappear when the store isn't busy. Another colleague wanted to go to the restroom and noticed that the door was locked on the men's, so some of us waited and found out that he was inside, our boss, with a man who appeared to be the same guy days before, the Mercedes guy. And this went on and on for weeks, months, no one said anything. The person who found out about him hiding in the Mercedes ended up having a huge argument with him over something really trivial and basically got bullied pretty badly over the next few weeks that ended with him reporting everything we knew to our district manager, who was also a gay man. We're pretty sure nothing came of it because there were no punishments and the whole charade kept happening almost every day. I left eventually, and from what I gathered, he got promoted into a bigger store in Soho here in New York City. Story 31. Too much. I know when the boss is dating, the holidays he takes, how much he pays himself, how him and his brothers are ruining the company, the deals with big companies that fell through due to the boss being 2 hours late for the meeting, one with the BBC, how they are losing money, and how I need to get a job soon, lol. On top of that, I know all the access codes, how to program access cards and change the master code, how to change the save codes, how to remove vital information from their backend servers, etc. I know a lot. I could single-handedly ruin the company even more. I know they don't follow health and safety regulations and the laws they break. Man, I have a lot of power, but with power comes responsibility. I'm also smart. I would never do anything. I'm not evil either. Story 32. I used to work in government and quit a few months ago because I could no longer take it. I have hours of recordings of this, but I have several people accusing our CFO of shady behavior, millions of dollars lost or spent on software we don't need or ever use, and people on payroll that don't do any work, etc. I tried to blow the whistle, but the CFO has his hands deep in HR. The board of directors covers their ears when I try to talk to them and refers me to the CFO. I tried to blow the whistle with the media, but I couldn't find a lawyer to protect me because they didn't want to have anything to do with the government. They blocked me from everyone and people were afraid to talk to me, so I was on payroll for several months while trying to work but being blocked left and right. It's disgusting. Story 33. I left school in 2015 and tried returning at the start of this year, but it was really difficult. As a result, I spent a lot of time with the school completion woman who's there for emotional support as well as other general jobs. She's a funny, sassy lady in her 60s, and as a result of spending so much time following her around, I left school again and now regularly go and have tea with her. I know too much about the school, one of which being just how many times the principal has messed up or how she hated the student-organized Pride Week. I also know that in the hall, the reason why the Chinese flag is missing amongst all the other international flags is because my English teacher thought it promoted communism. Story 34. The printer in our office goes down all the time. My printer is the next closest one. Because I print large art files, I have a spooler connected to my printer, so all files spool into that RIP, then sent to the printer. Whenever our HR manager prints stuff to my printer, she deletes it from the printer but doesn't know that the spooler saves everything sent to it. I always know the juicy stuff because she comes rushing in to grab it before anyone else can get it. I reprint it after she grabs her copy and goes. We just went through reviews and raises, so I now know everyone who got raises and bonuses, what they made before and make now, how much bonuses were, salespeople's commission, etc. I've also reprinted disciplinary reports in the past which are never as entertaining as you'd think. Story 35. The owner of the small business that I worked at was a sociopath with huge substance issues that made him impossible to deal with. One day, he freaking lost his mind on me, jumping up and down, telling me what a freaking idiot I was, all over a UPS drop-off on the other side of the wall where I was working. Now, to the psycho, it was blocking a walkway. I stood up for myself, told him that I was doing my job, shipping crap out, and had no idea as to what UPS was doing. He literally had foam at the corners of his mouth, but he walked away. 20 minutes later, he paged me to his office. I figured I was being sacked and didn't really mind. He had me take a seat, then proceeded to give me an impromptu performance evaluation, then gave me a hefty raise, never mentioning his meltdown. How can you deal with people like that? I don't want to bring politics up, but my little experience in hell seems to be what every person in the White House has to deal with now, writ large. Story 36. I used to work at a transportation company here in Connecticut that would write bogus paychecks because they never had enough money in their account. They knew they would bounce but did it anyway. The money would go into our accounts, but when the check came back, we would be on the hook for the money. My wife realized that what they were also doing was fudging my hours. Example, if I worked 6 hours and 45 minutes when payroll was calculated, I should have been receiving 6.75 hours of pay. Instead, they were creatively or incompetently paying me for 6.45 hours or 6 hours and 27 minutes, which seems insignificant, but definitely added up over the course of dozens of employees every day, every week. There was a small circle of scumbags that were the main culprits in this operation, hired as quote-unquote turnaround managers, and what they were doing was taking advantage of a company that was horribly mismanaged under the guise of restructuring the company. Leeches, essentially. What's crazy is that this small band of leeches ended up leaving the company after it filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy and starting another transportation company a few towns away, presumably to continue being shady. In Connecticut, people who want to start transportation entities must have a hearing with the state DOT and apply for a livery permit. Other companies and individuals can attend these public hearings to support or oppose the applications. I wanted to oppose the application, of course, so in that effort, I contacted the owner of the company and let him know that this person was attempting to start his own company and wanted to see if he had any additional dirt on these people he had hired. I also wanted to know the status of the $1,624.48 that was owed to me in bounced paychecks. Well, he didn't have any quote unquote dirt on these people, but what he did have was the understanding that I was already paid back my overdue money several months prior. He emailed me a copy of a check written out to cash in the amount of $1,624.48 with my name in the memo and endorsed by the head scumbag. The schmuck not only screwed me and all of the employees every single week for months on end, but when the owner finally decided to make good on all of our overdue bounced checks, he took all the checks and kept the money. I brought this evidence with me to this dude's livery hearing, and you know what happened? He said that he was also the victim of fraud and was owed money. Even though it was his signature on the check, he had no recollection of cashing the check or what happened to my money. When the adjudicator asked him why his signature, which he admitted was his, was on the check at all, the schmuck says, "Well, sometimes they would give me money for clipboards and pens and stuff." I said, "That's a lot of clipboards and pens." Well, they threw out all of my evidence, striking everything I had told and given them from the record, and gave this motley crew of pigs a permit anyway. And the witch who was fudging my paychecks, he hired her at his new company to be the HR/payroll manager, because she's so good with numbers. So that's something I know about two companies that I guess that I shouldn't, and certainly nobody but me, and perhaps a select few others, know what kind of people are in charge over at D-Bag Transportation Incorporated. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.